Jimmy Cav's 5150 interview series in Bulldozer Magazine here on a lovely Sunday evening at the beautiful Mayan Theater for a very interesting night of music. Sitting here is Ivar Bjornsson of Enslaved. How you doing?
Doing great, thanks. How are you?
Did I pronounce that properly? Because I'm notorious for butchering names.
That's perfect.
One of the things that's very interesting about Enslaved, for those of you that have been following this band, is the fact that outside of the whole Norwegian black metal scene, this band has really paved a new way of staying not only musically creative, but maintaining the foundation of what your origins were. Let me elaborate a little bit. As we both know in music, there tends to be a lot of times a contamination of the artist where they feel that they have to stay stagnated creatively because that's the base of for their fans. What's interesting and very, very respectable about Enslaved is that you truly are musicians, and you really, with every release, seem to break new ground. Talk to me a little bit about that. That's very, very unique, especially coming from the genre that you came from.
Yeah, that's what we're all about, is trying to create, good music for ourselves that we want to listen to. So it's important for us to incorporate things that we listen to, as music lovers and vinyl collectors and all that. Of course, a lot of progressive music and 70s classics and all that stuff. It's an important part of our musical identities. So we want it to be part of the music that we're making also. But at the same time, we need it to be enslaved. That's like the only rule that we have to stay true to who we are and who we've been all along. And it's been challenging to try and find that balance, but it's what keeps us going. It's what keeps it inspiring to sort of reinvent our roots, but at the same time letting ourselves be influenced by other things we listen to also. So it's sort of a guided, no rule sort of thing.
Yeah. One of the things that I've always really respected about what you do creatively as musicians is the fact that you don't hold yourself with creative weights. Let me elaborate a little bit. I love the fact that when I put on your record, it really shows not only a musical growth, maturity, but a confidence to go into realms of whatever you want to do, where, as I mentioned before, there's so many artists that either they feel they don't have that luxury, that freedom, or they refuse to go because they don't want to lose quote-unquote credibility.
Right. Yeah, that is it's a fine balance. You have to you have to be sure that what you're doing comes from your imagination, so to speak, from your personal view on music and life. And it's very easy to be fooled by your own sort of fantasies on where you want to go. It can be tempting to see if you have success with certain songs, or you see people reacting particularly to something. That's a good guide, that you're doing something right. But the moment you start to try and reproduce those moments, that's when you fail, I think, because it has to come natural. If there was such a thing as an actual recipe for success, I don't think we would have music even. That's more like, I guess, the realm of physical things like sports and so on. There's a certain recipe of how to do things to achieve certain goals. But the music is that's a beautiful thing. It's unfair, but it's also fair in its chaotic ways. That this crazy new band from a basement in Norway or LA or whatever can do an album, and all of a sudden the entire world is into it. Or you can be an old band going for 40 years and still get no success, So I think the only way to measure success that I've arrived at personally is if I felt that I did my best and I made music that I like myself.
Exactly. It's always interesting for me when I hear artists say that they involve themselves in the creative process to purge and to be creative on their own. But in reality, because of the business, because of the fan base, because of whatever is the market at that time, they succumb to that. What I really respect about your band, and creatively what I really respect, is that it does have remnants of quote-unquote the old school. What I mean by that, we say progressive and you think of a certain genre and certain bands that really at 20, 30 years ago paved a whole new way of exploring. And then when you think of bands that are trying to do that now, mundane, repetitive, etc., you've been able to not only completely sidetrack all that, but you capture the spirit of that creative era 30 years ago, but refreshed now, and yet you still maintain the foundation of what you started, which blends both audiences together. The extreme audience and the progressive audience. How do you do that? And do you do that organically, or is this something that you plan out?
I think it's just a reflection of who we are. That these are the people that relate to music in the same way that we do. Because we, when we started discovering our sort of musical ancestry, which are those bands from the 70s in particular, that invented, as you say, those years are so magical, like how they invented the whole concept of being a band, of being an artist, of being a live band, a studio act, and all that. And I think that's what's reflecting in our music, even though it might be a bit alien for, let's say, a fan of traditional prog, like Genesis and Rush and that kind of stuff. After a few listens, I think they catch on that they can sort of feel that, hear that love we have for that music, and how it's more of a tribute from our side to that era than anything else. And I think also the extreme audience recognize something in that. So when they ask us, we keep meeting people and they're like, "What's your influences?" And you're telling King Crimson, and then they like go back and check it, and I guess most metal people who listen through the first King Crimson for the first time, they get a bit of a shock.
Absolutely.
They realize like, hey, fuck, people invented this decades ago, what we're trying to do today.